All righty. Well, good morning. I was accused of cheating a little bit because our memory verse and our passage for the week with the children was Psalm 23. So I said, well, I'm just going to be preaching on that because I'm going to be talking about it all week. I'll be all ready to go. So we're going to look at Psalm 23 today. I'm just going to read it. Normally I read from NIV or New King James Version, but today I'm going to read from the King James Version because that's where I've learned it and that's where I think we're most familiar with it. So Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. May the Lord bless the reading of his word. Well, I must say that this is probably one of the most famous passages in the Bible. I think if we were to go down the street and ask different people, Psalm 23, they could probably fumble through it and let us know what it's about. And we've heard it many times growing up, and we've seen it many times. I've seen it printed on pictures, sewn on pillows, on plaques hanging in people's homes, on banners. So many different places we have seen this, and I'm sure you have seen it in different places, written on different things. And it's also in many movies and TV shows, not only Christian movies, but also mainstream movies and mainstream TV shows. Two that really came to mind right quick, where we could hear the Psalm 23, is one is the movie Titanic, and we've heard that before, and another is the TV show Bonanza, goes back away, but it's very popular, and we've heard this passage many, many times. But of course, the most we ever hear this passage, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, is at funerals. You know, a lot of times when I'm meeting with a family that's lost a loved one, I offer Psalm 23, and almost invariably they say, yes, please read it during the funeral. And I'm happy to do it. And sometimes they say, you know, I tell them I'm doing a homily, I'm going to say a few words. And sometimes I can use Psalm 23 as a verse for the homily, and they would agree to that and like that. Because it brings comfort. There's a lot in the passage that comforts people. And it's a very good passage at funerals. But you know what, I was preparing this message, I thought, you know, Psalm 23 is a good passage at funerals, but a better passage, is 1 Corinthians 13, in my humble opinion. Now you might say, no, hold on, Pastor, you got that confused. 1 Corinthians 13 is for weddings, not for funerals. But it is more appropriate if you read it for funerals. Now I know there's probably a joke in there somewhere, but I'm going to pass on that. But 1 Corinthians 13, especially when we get to that line, when I'm standing face to face with the Lord. But when are we going to be standing face to face with the Lord? We only see in part, but I'll know in full. And I love the way it ends. Faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Because we won't have to have faith anymore. We'll be standing with the Lord. We won't need to have hope anymore because we will be standing. And that's why love will win out. When we pass from this earth and we're standing face to face with the Lord, we'll have that love. And that's a fantastic way of looking at it. And I just thank you for me going on my tangent. That faith, hope, and love, 1 Corinthians 13. So I sometimes preach on Psalm 23 at funerals, and I love doing that. But I know, as a pastor, that when I'm preaching at a funeral, I'm probably the last person that's being paid attention to, because they've got a lot of ideas, a lot of things going through their mind if they've just lost a loved one. They might be going through a lot of different memories, both good and bad. They might even be reliving some battles they've had with this person. I hope, though, they would focus on the good. But I know that it's a lot of times, no matter how good the message is, no matter what I say, it's not the focus. It's not what they can, not what they hold on to. But it shows us and it comforts us, this psalm. It's just a fantastic psalm, a wonderful psalm. And it helps people when they're in grief. And it helps them. And I'm glad I can preach it at sermons. But I don't fault people. I always try to find the positive in people when in life. And I think we can always think, people will do things, cut us off in traffic, or they'll speed right past us. And I always think, well, let's look at the positive. Why would somebody be doing that? What's going on with that? So today is a beautiful day when we look at Psalm 23, because we're not in a funeral. We're not grieving. We have time that we can sit back, we can hear the words, we can take it in. And it's not a time of grief, I hope. So why Psalm 23? As I said, it was the theme passage for our VBS. And I love when I got ready for VBS, I saw it was Psalm 23. And I said to some of the other teachers, I said, it's not going to be hard for me to prepare to teach Psalm 23. Because some passages, especially when you're teaching with youth, because I had the youth, you're worried about, well, how are they going to see this? What does it mean? How can they apply it to their lives? And Psalm 23 was just so easy. I thought to myself, if I can't teach the youth Psalm 23, I should just pack it in. But we had a really good time and a really good lessons we've had each time. And then the children and the youth were really good and really listening. So that's why we're going to take a look at it today. So Psalm 23 does two things at the same time. It gives us a lot of information about God and what we should know about God. And it also gives information about us. And I love that the two can go together. And as I said, it's such a comfort. And I know that we don't have, we might find some sheep if we looked around today or we drove around. So we don't have sheep as abundantly as they did in Jesus' time. But I think through the message and through just the learning about sheep and shepherds, we can understand the message and we get a good idea on what they're talking about, and we can apply it to our lives and our relationship with God. And I want as a side, I was told that Greencastle actually got somebody to actually bring a sheep. So for one of their days, they got a sheep. Well, the last day we had a fire truck and two firemen talking about fire safety. So I don't know. So, but that was really good. That was a really highlight of the VBS. So. And we had, I was talking with one of the trustees of the fire department afterwards. He says his grandkids were quizzing him on the way home, making sure he knew the fire safety rules that they learned, which was good. I like that. So if we look at all the Psalms, though, we look at Psalm 23. It's a beautiful psalm, a heartfelt psalm. But many psalms was written by David, and many of them do not go the way Psalm 23 goes. They're wondering where God is and why, God, have you forsaken me? And it's very different in that regard. I got a call from one of the children in my youth group at my last church, and she was being bullied. And she says, we're having youth group tonight. Could you talk about bullying, Pastor John? I said, fantastic. I can talk about bullying, sure. So I looked through the Bible, and if you just back up a little bit, you go to Psalm 22, which again was written by David, a king. And it shows where David's head was. It shows where he was in Psalm 22. I'll just read the first two verses and it gives us a good idea. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me? So far from my cries of anguish. My God, I cry out by day, but you did not answer by night. But I find no rest. That does not seem like the Lord is my shepherd. It sounds like somebody yelling out in despair. And we do get that way. Even Christians who've been Christians for many years can get that way. And we can see how if a king, David, somebody of his stature, is feeling this way, we too can feel that way. So it's very different in Psalm 23. But he does get it at the end, because Psalm 22 finishes off, "I will proclaim his righteousness, declaring to a people yet unborn, he has done it." So that gives us one example, and it's a delight that he gets it. So let's look at Psalm 23. It starts off very simple, very straightforward. The Lord is my shepherd. And that's what we need to establish. And I was almost to the point of being harsh with the children, and I'll be just as harsh. And I remember one of my seminary professors saying this to me, and I've taken it to heart. The Lord is my shepherd. So if the Lord is not your shepherd, then this is not for you. I'm sorry, it doesn't apply to you. I mean, not that you can't read it, but it doesn't apply to you if the Lord is not your shepherd. And I had to really impress upon the children. You know, a little while ago, I had to renew my passport. And there's a whole section, if the passport applicant is under 16 years of age. Well, as you can see, that ship has sailed long ago. So I didn't have to pay attention to it. I didn't have to fill out that part of the form. Didn't have to do anything. It's not for me. And it's the same way when we look at this. But I hope and pray that the Lord is your shepherd. So then we go right to the next line, still in the same verse. I shall not want. So God makes it very clear. But I can read this, and I'm sure you can read this, and I want a lot of things. Sometimes they're physical wants, sometimes they're material wants. So what does this mean, I shall not want? But I think it's the spiritual want. When we have that relationship with God, we don't have any wants because that spiritual relationship is filled. That spiritual relationship is done, it's fulfilled, it is good. And that's why we need to focus on the good when we have that relationship. We can get caught up in the bad and the negative and the not so good, but we need to focus on the good and the positive aspect that we can have. And keep in mind that this is David writing this song. So he was a shepherd boy, as the children learned, killed Goliath. And we know how simple animals are, that the sheep are. And we need to have a shepherd to guide us, to direct the sheep, to get them out of trouble, to defend them when animals are coming, because they're pretty defenseless against any kind of wild animals. But they can be there for them, protect them, guide them, and direct them. And God will guide and direct us, even when we don't understand the way. It is not the way it is sometimes. We don't understand the way. But He's there for us. And He shall supply all our needs. As long as it lines up with God, we have that spiritual connection. So as we move on, and this part of the passage really came true on Friday evening for me. He makes me lie down in green pastures. Nobody needed to tell me to lie down Friday evening. Believe me, I was ready to lie down. Nobody had to make me lie down. When VBS was over, I was very tired. But He doesn't just lie us down anywhere. He makes us lie down. He makes us to take time. Sometimes we need to take time from this busy world and busy life. And He leads us beside green pastures. I love how He leads us beside green pastures. That's the word of life, the green pastures. They're milk for babies and food for us. And the green pastures are never barren. They're never eaten bare. They're never parched, but always green. And our faith will be fed. So He makes us lie down. And then He leadeth me beside still waters. And I asked the youth, I said, why does it make a big deal of still waters? Ooh, and they got it right quick, and I love that. It's because rushing waters would scare the sheep, they said. You can't get a drink from rushing waters. There's still waters, a place they can get drink, and a place they can be refreshed and renewed. And we can be refreshed and renewed when we stay in his word, when we study his word. And then he leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And I love how we have that. He's leading us in the right path. He directs us in the path that we should go. Sometimes it's not the path we want to go, but it's the path we should go. You know, I saw a joke on the internet the other day, and it was somebody with a questioning face, and it says, "You are praying to God for help? You probably have. Your problems you have was because you didn't listen to him in the first place." I says, yeah, I've met people like that, even myself, I must admit. And then we're told he restores my soul. He restores my soul. Yes, we go astray. Yes, we have different troubles, but we always can be restored. He restores me when I'm sick. He restores me when I'm faint. He restores me. And I know we live in a fallen world, and perfection will not come until we are face to face with the Lord, as I said earlier. But until then, he restores us. And he leadeth me in the path of righteousness. He leads me. Yes, I will go astray. Yes, we'll all go astray. But he is leading us what we need to do. Then I love this passage, part of the passage. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And I know sometimes people rush over that shadow of death. But I said to the children, and I'm saying to you, what can a shadow do? A shadow can do nothing. So if it's a shadow of death, it has no power over us. It has nothing to do with us. It's just a shadow. And I like some of the people, when the children were like, yeah, it's just a shadow. I'm not afraid of shadows. But I love how he says that. But then thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And I know people stumble on this. A rod and a staff don't sound very comforting, do they? Maybe a recliner, maybe a warm blanket, a cold glass of water on a hot day. These things will comfort me. But the comfort does not come for me, but it comforts me that it can protect me, that it can guide me, that it can direct me. The shepherd's crook can pull me out of danger, and it's there for me. The rod of the Lord's strength is there for us, and it brings us into his everlasting arms. Beautiful, beautiful. Then we get the next part of the passage. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. I know some people get caught up on the enemies. And I remember a story of a young boy, a little boy, a toddler. Young boy was being really bad. His parents sent him off his room. So that's it. So you act nicely and right, you're going to stay in your room. Well, come time for supper. Come down for supper. That's it, then back up to the room. And because you've been so bad, we're going to get you to stay grace tonight. I said, okay. So he bowed his head and said, Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. But the Lord provides for us. He provides for us. And I love how it says, Thou preparest the table. And He anoints my head with oil. And my cup runneth over. You know, I have a friend of mine, he signs his email, I'm drinking from my saucer because my cup's running over. And that is beautiful. You know, when we look at the blessings we have, and all the things that we have, and all the ways the Lord has been there for us, have you looked back on your life and you said, wow, Lord, you have been there in the good times and the bad times? Have you looked back on your life and said, thank you, Lord, for unanswered prayers? Yes, I have many unanswered prayers that I am thankful the Lord did not answer. Or He answered with a no, so I could move on to bigger and better things in serving Him and loving Him and my relationship with Him. So I love that we can be comforted and our cups are running over. And then it says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. That's wonderful that we have this goodness And we have this mercy, a pardoning mercy, a protecting mercy, a sustaining mercy, a supplying mercy. But I had one language professor in seminary, and he says, this is one part, he said, I will complain about the translation. What's going on here? It sounds good. I like it. Hold on. He says, they say, goodness and mercy shall follow me. He said, that's not the right words or the term, because it sounds like they're following you like a child or following you like a dog. And that's not what goodness and mercy are doing. Goodness and mercy are pursuing you. They are tracking you down. They are there for us, not just following, but they are encompassing us and consuming us with that goodness and mercy that we can have. And I love how if you look at it through pursuing rather than just following along, that it brings it so much stronger, so much stronger. And then we see how it ends. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Isn't that a fantastic way to end? Isn't that a fantastic way to think about it? Now, I know in different translations, and we've often had this discussion with different people, because some places it says mansions, and some places it says rooms. So what is my house going to be like if I'm going to dwell there forever? And I know some people say, I hope I get a mansion. And I'm of the school of saying, I would gladly take a room as long as I'm dwelling in the house of the Lord forever. Whether it be a room, a closet, or a mansion, I will be happy and I will be joyful that I am with the Lord. I will be pleased that I'm with heaven. So this is a famous passage, a wonderful passage, brings comfort to people in time of need. And I think a passage, unfortunately, if we're reading our Bible or we're studying, we just kind of zip right through it because, oh, I know that one. I've heard it all the time. Oh, I know that one. But I'm glad we could take time today and take a look at it, to break it down, to see all the things that David was saying about a shepherd, about the Lord, and about us, and how we have that wonderful relationship. That wonderful relationship. So I'm going to end where I started. And I have to ask the same question I asked the children. Is the Lord your shepherd? Because as I said, if he's not, this doesn't apply to you. But if he is, it's a beautiful relationship as we just looked at today.